Welcome back to Day and Night Studio, art friends. I'm Dana Davis. I've been teaching art for 16 years and I'm here to share all the secrets and tips with you guys. If someone asked me if I could lift a 10-foot steel beam and put it on top of a skyscraper, I would say absolutely not. That is way too heavy of a load. I could never do that. So today I'm going to teach you how to use a grid. If someone said to me, I'm going to teach you how to use a crane, and then could you lift this heavy beam up and put it up on top of the skyscraper? I would say, oh, well, yeah, if you're going to teach me how to use a crane, then that's a whole different story. That's what I'm going to teach you to do today. I'm going to teach you to use a tool that will make heavy lifting artistically manageable. The first step is really simple. We're going to label our rows and our columns. Once you get done labeling the reference, go to your grid and label it in the same way so that they correspond and they match. All right, once you've got your labeling done, let's start with A1. Doesn't really have anything in it. Let's move on to A2. It has a little piece of the eyebrow in it, and I think most of the eyebrow is contained in row A. So let's start with 2, and it just has a little corner piece right there. It drifts upwards in the 3 box and has a little bit there. Sometimes I look at the shape that is left over, the shape that is not being used. We call that the negative space. So I'd look at that and it makes it a little easier for me to determine where that piece is falling within the square. 5, it hits about the middle of 5. And 6, not quite to the edge. So that's what I'm seeing. And not quite the top. So you can see I put some little guidelines with my highlighter just to make sure I recognize what I was really seeing. Okay, we're ready for row B. See a little bit of shading here. To let you know what I'm looking at, I'm gonna kind of color code as I go. So this little shape here that I colored blue, that's what I'm seeing as a negative space. And the edge of the eyebrow kind of sticks in there. Then there's this little green shape. And then there's a little tiny corner piece of the sclera or the white of the eye. So it's kind of a busy little piece, especially here in this corner. And it just cuts across diagonally like that. The eyelid and the sclera. This next square is loaded. Lots of information. So let's start with the most obvious, which is this big highlight. It's just a little round ball that sits there right in the corner. Then I barely see a little piece of the sclera showing right there. But I divided that one into 4 more squares, 4 little squares, because it is so challenging. So if you need to pause the video and take a little time on that one, then nobody is judging you here. I took a lot longer in reality than this video shows. The little segment above that eyelid, the negative space there, leaves me with a line that goes diagonal. In B5, there's quite a bit of empty space right here in the upper right, so we're not having to do a lot there, but in the lower left-hand corner, there's quite a bit of eyelid and eyelashes, which we'll save for later. I almost forgot, we need to do the edge of the face. So it's in column 6. It goes through a little bit of A 6. And AB is mostly the face and a little bit of negative space there that I showed in blue. And then anywhere there's spots that are going to be shaded and what we call soft edges, I'm just going to show that as a dotted line just to represent that there's something going on there, but it's not necessarily needing to be an outline. So that's what I'm showing you here, is that a dashed line for me is a soft edge and a solid line is a hard edge, where I will probably do some really dark shading and have a lot of contrast. Those are just my own keys so that I can keep track. Whatever you need to do to stay focused on your drawing and to not get lost or confused or second guess yourself, then do it. Whatever works for you. In C2, there's almost like greater than, less than sign, just a little triangle, but it is kind of strange that there's this much of the tear duct, but that is what we're really seeing. And then C3, we have a little bit of the iris. We have some sclera, just a little sliver of the white of the eye. And then the lower lid is doing this diagonal and falling from the left side of C3 all the way down to the diagonal. And this is a spot where I think, that can't be right, but it is. That's what I see. And we're just recording what we observe. So the grid helps us identify some of those truths that don't really seem right, but that's what the reference tells us. So we're gonna stick with it. If it looks right on the reference, it should look right in our drawing if we record it properly. All right, we have the iris intact, even though we haven't finished this corner yet. It's a nice little C shape that goes from C4 to C5 and up to B4. So it's just gonna wrap around there. This makes almost like a little C shape right here in C5. Identifying negative space wherever that eyelash is not is an important shape. It looks like an L, backward L. So I'm always trying to tell my mind, okay, it looks like a backward L, instead of make it look like an eyelash or the corner of an eye, because it's not going to look like that initially until I shade it. So at this stage, it's not going to look like that. It's going to look like something different, but my mind is going to tell me it's not right till it looks just like an eyelash or the corner of an eye. So I'm going to say, all right, well, I'm going to put this little shape in here to represent where it's going to be dark. All right, we can smooth it out now because we've represented basically all the parts that are the most important. And because we drew from a grid, sometimes it looks a little bumpy and lumpy. So we're gonna make sure it looks fluid and it flows from one box to another without that jolt where you've started or stopped. And I'm just gonna do that with even a bigger Sharpie instead of a little skinny one. I got my big one out. Here we go. That looks so much better. And I feel really confident about the size and the shape because I used that grid and it gave me some framework that I needed. So if you've never used a grid before, this for drawing, if you've only used it for like playing Battleship, then hopefully you are realizing, wow, it really can help me be more accurate. So if you've learned something, I hope you'll pass this video along to a friend and give it a thumbs up, because it really has helped a lot of students of mine, and especially ones that are just learning and not so sure about the placement of these things. Just putting a few eyelashes on here because I just don't think it looks very good without them. Notice when you get to C5, the eyelashes are almost horizontal, and then they start going in the opposite direction like a little V. All right, now you're ready for shading and value. So move on to the advanced level.
On my timeline. So you picture on my timeline. You were backlit by the sunshine. Couldn't text across the skyline. Undecided as I scroll by. Timeline. Over words for hours by my timeline.
Okay, I'm at the bottom. Oh, this corner has so much dark that I don't really know where the eyeball ends and the lashes begin and the eyelid. It's all just one big shape that looks like a witch's hat. So I'm gonna just map that out. And I see things like that, you guys. It looks so weird to see that witch there, but that's what I'm picture. Anytime I'm drawing, I just think, okay, what shape is it? How dark is it? What is dark around it? What is light around it? I just am constantly asking myself those questions. And if to me it looks like a witch hat, then that is a more honest approach for me as an artist than if I said it's a dark shape. Because every time I look away, I forget. And then I don't know what shape to draw. But if I say, oh, it's like a pointy witch hat, then all of a sudden my hand makes the right shape. So you can trick your brain, because your brain sure does try to trick you when you're drawing stuff like this. So you need to find out little tips like that so that you have something to fight back with. Because your brain's just gonna say, it's just dark. Just make a big dark blob. Lazy brain. Don't let it tell you stuff like that. Now that I'm really putting some pressure on my graphite, it's glaring. I turn out that light. Now it's not glaring. But you can see how even in the grid, I know where the shadows end, the highlights begin. I can break down that structure using my grid. And in a drawing that I was going to not show off the grid, I would want all these lines to be absorbed into my drawing, and I wouldn't want to show them off. And I have that little reference in the lower right hand corner, and I'm looking at it a lot, basically to decide how dark to make all of this, and it is pretty dark. So I'm putting layer after layer of graphite on here, and I want to give a little bit of design in this iris. So I'm just stippling little uneven marks throughout the iris. Just trying to make it a little unpredictable. I don't want it to look like polka dots. I think using a grid is a fantastic tool. And a lot of artists like Chuck Close have made a career in gridding artwork. So if it's good enough for them, it's definitely good enough for me. And it makes my drawings way more accurate, and I just spend less time second guessing myself and moving stuff and erasing stuff. And that's worth a lot to me as an artist. How confident can I be when I place things? Okay, I've been waiting for this details part because details are dessert. So I'm so ready to get these eyelashes put on this eye. It's so hard to wait. Ooh, let me polish up this highlight real quick. And I want to pay attention to how many eyelashes are in each box. What direction are they pointing? You know, is it north, south, east, west? Kind of decide before you make that pencil stroke which direction your lashes are going in. You do want to make it kind of varied, because if you just make them poke straight out, they look crazy. Don't do that. So some of them almost even end up horizontally in that C5 box. Look at those. Those are just almost pointing, you know, west and east. So we have to lay those down a little more flat. Once you have all your structures in place, you can ignore the grid more and make all your lines really fluid. You don't want everything to look choppy like you drew it one box at a time. So that's what I'm doing right now, is I'm making sure that all my shapes, even though they went from one box to another, have fluid shape and aren't kind of stilted. As well as just bumping up the contrast, giving some hair in the eyebrows, almost on top of that shadow that I put. Just deepen this tear duct a little bit. So wherever I am drawing, if the grid tells me that something is happening within that space, then the grid is telling you the truth. So if you're doing a realistic drawing from a reference image, you are copying it. And if we are copying something like we are a copy machine, our copy machine wouldn't ask a lot of questions. It would just say, it's this dark and it belongs here. It's this shape and it's right next to that. So sometimes we just get a little bit lost and overwhelmed, and so much of that anxiety is put in our drawings that it paralyzes us. And the grid can help you identify what's true. And I think that is its best benefit, is it helps unlock some of that anxiety, where you can just move forward one box at a time, and you don't have to get so burdened by, is it right? Is it big enough? Is it in the right spot? If the grid tells you it's there, then it's there. You can trust it.